So I've been looking into that headline, Myanmar versus Thailand earthquake, hidden impacts and unseen ripples. It's astonishing how the same 7.7 quake ripped through these nations so differently, especially considering Myanmar suffered over 1,600 dead, while Thailand, despite a dramatic skyscraper collapse in Bangkok, had far fewer casualties.
It's crazy. What do you think created that huge disparity?
Well, for starters, the epicenter was located just 16 kilometers northwest of Sagaing, Myanmar, at a very shallow depth, 10 kilometers exactly, right on the Sagaing Fault.
Right.
That meant that Myanmar experienced what you could call violent shaking, Mercalli intensity reaching level 9 in some spots.
And in contrast, Thailand is, around 600 miles away from that epicenter?
Exactly. Thailand felt the quake, but the waves had weakened considerably over that distance. Yet it wasn't completely safe either. Bangkok's high rises started swaying with rooftop pools spilling over, really dramatic visuals, but only one unfinished skyscraper finally collapsed, maybe due to factors like underbracing or less rigorous safety checks.
I get it. But here's my thought. If Thailand's had seismic codes in place since 2009, why did that one building still fall?
That's a solid point. It's not entirely about having codes. It's also about enforcement and local conditions. Bangkok sits on soft soil, which tends to amplify long-period waves. So even with good regulations, an unfinished frame might simply buckle under that specific kind of stress.
So, while Myanmar suffered an onslaught due to both weak construction standards and a brutally intense quake, Thailand's issues were more about unexpected soil dynamics and perhaps a slip in the construction process?
Exactly. In Myanmar, especially around places like Mandalay, you see aged pagodas and ancient bridges collapsing like dominoes because they weren't built to withstand such intense shaking, whereas Thailand's modern high-rises mostly stood firm aside from that one anomaly.
Yep, very intriguing. And then there's the twist of conflict in Myanmar. I read somewhere that ongoing civil unrest even worsened the disaster.
Right. The situation there is even more tragic because the civil war compounded the chaos. Airstrikes in Cayenne and Shan states collapsed critical infrastructure like the Ava Bridge and blocked rescue efforts. It's almost a double disaster.
That's pretty grim. And economically, it sounds like Myanmar's hit colossal. Losses over $10 billion on a GDP of about $6.4 billion.
Absolutely. Imagine, Mandalay is a major trade hub, and with markets and roads destroyed, exports of rice or jade could, choke the local and even global supply chains. Meanwhile, Thailand's economy, around $500 billion, can absorb these shocks a lot better.
Makes sense. And, I saw something about a potential methane pocket being released in Myanmar due to the quake's shallow depth. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, it's one of those environmental wildcards. Scientists on social media are buzzing about how shallow quakes might unseal trapped methane, adding another layer of risk.
It truly is a layered disaster. Geology, poor infrastructure, ongoing conflict, even environmental factors in play.
Exactly, it's like a cascade of catastrophes. And while both countries were hit by the same natural event, the local conditions and circumstances flipped the script entirely. Myanmar facing a multifaceted crisis while Thailand dealt with mainly a construction misfortune in an otherwise sturdy system.
Right, absolutely. What an intense, almost surreal interplay of nature and human issues. It really shows how context makes all the difference.
Yep, exactly. And amidst all these statistics, there's human drama too. Like that Mandalay teacher who's been texting updates from under rubble while rescuers rush to help. It drives the point home that every number represents a personal tragedy.
Very moving indeed. Wow, a quake that flips perspectives across borders. It's a stark reminder of how diverse impacts can be, dependent on a region's resilience or lack thereof.